So welcome everyone to Aerospace Xelerated's Ask Us Anything for Cohort 4. Today we'll be answering some questions that you have shared with us on the upcoming program, applications, and what Aerospace Xelerated is all about. So to kick off, I'd love to first introduce myself. My name is Dana. I'm the program manager at Aerospace Xelerated. With me, we have Jacqueline Davidson, program director, and Simon Morris, who is chief commercial officer at one of our portfolio companies, HiiROC. If Jacqueline, Simon, if you quickly, briefly introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Ladies first.
Thanks, Simon. Hi, everyone. Jacqueline Davidson. As Dana mentioned, I'm the program director for Aerospace Xelerated. I'm also the investing principal for Boeing Company. I'm here today to talk a little bit about Aerospace Xelerated, so thank you for tuning in. It's great to have you here with us. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, but I will soon be relocating to the Netherlands. So looking forward to getting over to closer to those European startups that are joining us today. Simon?
Hi, everyone. My name's Simon Morris. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer and one of the founders of HiiROC. HiiROC was founded back in 2019. We are an engineering business doing hydrogen generation technology, a novel form of hydrogen generation technology that we're fully expecting to change the world with, to give it a big build up. I'm not an engineer myself, so please don't ask me any technical questions, but happy to field any other questions.
Thank you both. So to kick off, I'd love to first briefly introduce Aerospace Xelerated, so we all have some context of the program. So we are a 3-month accelerator for early stage startups striving to advance the future of sustainable aerospace. And the program is open to startups globally and is a seed to Series A stage accelerator for startups looking to either scale in or establish themselves into the aerospace industry. And it's delivered by the Boeing Company and Tawazun Economic Council this year. So the theme for Cohort 4 is digital services and solutions. And within this theme, we have several sub-buckets that we are looking for to work together with startups. And the 4 of them are flight and passenger journey optimization, supply chain intelligence, next generation workforce, and operational efficiency. And on our website as well as Medium blogs, you can see more information that we've written about each of these themes that we've asked our Boeing technical experts for input on, so you can learn a little bit more. So I guess to kick off, let's start with the application process. So how the application process works, we've received a few questions from potential applicants who've asked questions via email as well as during office hours. So applications have opened. You can apply and submit an application directly via our website, xelerated.aero. And applications will close on September 25th. So you can take your time and spend as much time as you would want on the application form, but we'd highly suggest you to submit early just because in the early times, there are less applications. So we spend a bit more time on each of them and just to make sure that you are in scope. And if there are any follow-up questions, there is enough time for us to email you or maybe hop on a call to clarify before we share your application with the selection committee. So the next stage after applications is once they close, we will forward them to the selection committee who will review your application and potentially hop on any follow-up interviews that they might have to clarify either anything around your commercial traction, founding team, what you're really looking for out of the accelerator program, but also to dig more into your technology and your potential routes to POCs and what you're really looking for in the accelerator program. So in terms of dates, so we'll be in touch on whether you've been successful for the long listing process, probably around October 28th, and follow-up interviews will occur the week before that and the week after that. And the next stage after that would be shortlisting, where we select the top 20 startups to then invite to selection days, which will occur on late November, so around November 22nd and 23rd. And then from there, we'll select our top 8 to 10 startups, which will then form cohort 4, and the program will kick off in January 2023. I'm just looking at some of the questions that we've received. I guess continuing the theme of the application process, I guess, Jacqueline, what would you say the selection committee is really looking for in the application form, and what should startups be really conscious of when they submit their application?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to take it in a different angle of things that we're not limiting ourselves to, and then I'll kind of tailor in on things that we're specifically would really like to see. I'll start first and foremost by saying, yes, this program is being delivered by Boeing and Tawazun Economic Council, but there is not an expectation to be an aerospace focused or specific aerospace startup. We are very open to other adjacent industries. I would say what is the expectation is to have a good understanding of how your solution or your business could scale into aerospace. So I would say, focus the application on understanding when there is a portion asking about proof of concepts. Try to understand some of the key partners that you would be working with, and those will be announced in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. But I would say look at some of those partners that you would get to interact closely with, whether it's Boeing, Tawazun Economic Council. What are their pain points that they're addressing, and how could you support? I think having a clear understanding of a solution-oriented mindset and application is something that we're absolutely looking into, because that will be an important element of the program. I would also say in the application process, if your business is focused on any startup, when you grow, focus on sustainability. So that is something that is core and underlying to our team, and it's very important. Don't think sustainability necessarily when you think aerospace is strictly environmental, but also team and governance. How are you going to scale and grow that business? That understanding of being able to pull out who you are as a team is something that's going to be important to try to understand through the application process. Now, granted, I know that's hard to do sometimes in Word, so there will be certain elements where we can interview, but I think just stay true to you and your business. Don't change any portion of it throughout the application process, but really try to pull into how is your company going to be, why should we support you and your company from a founder perspective, but also from a scalability perspective? And what is the specific areas that you think you can support within aerospace? Even if you're not sure, I would say put the idea out there.
Thanks a lot, Jacqueline. And following on from that, Simon, what would be your advice for startups when they look at the application form? What should they focus on and really bring out?
Well, I think the first most important thing, and it's one of the questions that's come through on the chat already, is accelerators can be a waste of time. Is this really worth it? If I didn't think it was worth it, I really wouldn't be here. When we came to discuss internally between the team whether we were going to do this accelerator, we looked at the level of involvement that had already been gone into from Boeing and the folks at Aerospace Xelerated, and we realised this probably was going to be a different accelerator. So I was the most sceptical of all the guys in the team here as to whether we should do this, and I can very definitely say it was worth it. We've got a huge amount of value out of it. We are continuing nearly 2 years down the line to get a huge amount of value out of it. So to answer that question quite clearly, yes, this is an accelerator which is worth doing. That said, if you're going to do it, you have to realise that it is a commitment. The 3 months that we were doing the accelerator, there were some weeks due to time differences where some nights we were finishing sort of 10, 11 o'clock in the evening with calls over to Boeing in Seattle. It is a big commitment. It is something that I think if you're going to make an application, if you're going to do it half-heartedly, I would say really don't bother. There are lots of very good companies that go for this accelerator. if you're going to do it, you have to go full tilt. I don't think you can go in and just give it a quick shot and see what happens. You've really got to go for it. And then if you're successful, luckily successful to get onto the accelerator itself, realize that it is quite a time commitment, but also realize the huge value that you get out of it. One of the quotes that was constantly given to us was, don't expect unfair results, but maybe you can expect unfair access to people that you wouldn't normally be able to speak with. And that was apparent. I mean, we were speaking to people C-suite within Boeing. It really was hugely impressive, the sessions that we had. And as I say, we're still in contact with a lot of folks from all the companies that were involved in that, plus other cohort members we're still in touch with, and we still have our WhatsApp group running. So I would say, if you're going to do it, take it very seriously and give it everything.
Thanks so much, Simon, and definitely agree with that. This isn't necessarily a very kind of program that you can apply to and expect to kind of attend half-heartedly, just because we don't want to waste your time when we don't want to waste the time of our mentors who have dedicated time to the program. And kind of following on from just around the application process, we have a few questions around the type and kind of the scope of companies that we're looking for. So one of them being, can we apply with only a prototype that has been tested and the company doesn't generate any revenue? I guess, feel free to take it.
Again, I'm happy to answer that. So we're still in development. When we went onto the accelerator program, we had one small office. I think we had 12 staff at the time, and we were very much in the early stages of our development. We've now progressed to the point that we should be getting our first on-site units delivered before the end of this year. So yes, you can absolutely apply at that stage. And I think the people that that you're applying to have the foresight to realise that, you know, that's probably the perfect area for an accelerator to get onto an accelerator.
Yep, I would say I mean, you know, that was perfectly stated. I think the only other thing that I would add is, you know, you could be like Simon's business, you know, doing something very large and very complex, you know, zero CO2 hydrogen production using a thermal electrolysis process. Not even sure if I still understand fully your business, but it's, you know, very long-winded and complicated. The TRL journeys, depending on technology area, it varies. So I would say, you know, depending on what it is and what technology area it is and how long you've been around, I would say focus on your milestones, focus on continually achieving, and reflect that into the application. But yes, we're not specifically, you know, we've invested in a company in Cohort 1 that was founded 6 weeks prior to applications opening, all the way through to startups that have been around for years. It's just very unique and case-by-case basis.
Awesome. And I think that answers one of the questions that someone submitted, saying newly created companies, do we support that? And as Jacqueline mentioned, yes, but we would definitely want to see what milestones have you managed to achieve, what kind of traction, whether that's kind of small scale, any kind of letter of intent, or anything that you can demonstrate that we should support your company. It doesn't matter whether you've been operating in the industry for a while or you've just newly created or incorporated the company. So the main thing is that you can bring a difference to the aerospace industry. I guess looking through the questions, I wanted to kind of briefly move on to the program benefits side and what we offer through the program. So as a brief, I guess, Jacqueline, if you could speak more to the kind of optional Boeing investment of $100K per startup via an uncapped safe equity. What does that entail and what does the process look like, and why should why is that a good benefit for startups applying?
Yeah, so let me touch a little bit on the benefits, and then Simon, I would love to hear your thoughts on what was most value added post-program. There is an element of investment, but also strategic support. So let's talk about the investment first and foremost. So it is optional. There is not a requirement to take it. We use a safe note, simple agreement for future equity, where we put in 100,000 pounds, and it's pounds because the program originated out of the UK, but we do convert that to whatever your local currency is. And that amount is in the form of a safe note where we will convert to future equity at a 20% discount at a later stage. That investment, again, is optional. We will invest from the Boeing company, and we will also have the option to invest from Tawazun Economic Council. Thus, you will have the option to 200,000 pounds in the portion of being part of this program. Again, you don't have to take that. So that is the investment piece. The other piece I would say that I've heard, and I'm curious to hear Simon's thoughts, that is very value added is that strategic piece. So, at Boeing, as an example, we're not just the investor, we're also the customer a lot of times. We have a very large sub-tier supply chain. So our business is very wrapped up in trying to look forward to the next century. How are we going to remain competitive? With a company as big as ours, it is important to always be looking on outside innovation to bring it in. So to that piece, we are very focused on understanding how can we bring in new solutions? How can we, connect you all with subject matter experts internally to either be a mentor or support through, a partnership or a proof of concept where applicable. I will say, Simon mentioned it, we really do on that strategic piece focus on how do we roll out the red carpet to our partners and give you unfair access, but what you do with that access is totally up to you. So turn that into opportunities. We'll help and support you all along the way. The program team is here right alongside you. And I will say that support doesn't end after program. So it's a 3-month program, but we understand that the path to revenue in aerospace is very long. And to get some of these opportunities really up and running, it does take its time. So we're really focused on how do we put you in front of the right stakeholders so you get that traction, and then you can run with it post-program or during program if applicable. But I would say those are the key elements. It's not just a Boeing and a Tawazun show. I would say it's very much partner-led and partner-focused. We're focused on aerospace holistically from that strategic point. So we do also have corporate dating days where we'll introduce you to various different subject matter experts from the likes. I mean, in the past, it's been PwC, Airbus, EasyJet. It's very broad, and we'll work with you once the program is selected to understand what types of individuals you'd like to get in front of. Simon?
Yeah, so we as a company, we took the investment from Boeing with the, as Jacqueline explained, with the safe note. Towards the end of the program, we had dedicated investor days where we were talking to potential investors ranging from people dealing with ultra high net worths right up to large corporate VCs. Again, they were the sort of meetings and the sort of introductions that would probably have taken many months of trawling through LinkedIn and various other networks to try and get those meetings set up. In every example of those meetings, we were speaking to people who could make decisions on investment. So the process of actually being on the accelerator is a huge endorsement for your company. As many of you may know, once you've got some money in, and once you've got money in from somebody of the likes of Boeing, conversations seem to be that little bit more easy when you're speaking to other potential investors. On the cohort we were on, the companies involved were GKN, Aerospace, and Rolls-Royce. The parent company of GKN Aerospace invested in us last year. They invested 10 million in us last year. But we are in conversations with Airbus, EasyJet, with ongoing conversations with Rolls-Royce. We're looking at potential projects in the US and in the Middle East with Boeing. Yes, I can't remember what the original question was now because I've gone rambling on. Does that answer the question, or I rambled off course?
No, it did. That was great. And it really, really covers it. And it's great to hear from your perspective what you found valuable from the program. And adding to that, I'd say another aspect that we didn't really touch on is the curriculum. And that is something that the program team does spend quite a bit of time to ensure that the curriculum is tailored to the startup founders, as well as the operators who are participating in the program. And so that's it. What we deliver to you is something that is of value, and so that we don't really kind of force anything on you that you wouldn't find useful or don't want to waste your time on. So this is definitely something that we try to make it very tailored. We connect you with the people that would make most sense to you. We connect you with the mentors that would be able to help you in areas that you need support in. And so one of the questions that we also got is in the chat is, who is the ideal person to attend the accelerator? Top management or specific business function heads or founders?
I would say top management slash founders, because I would say we'll focus on, Dana mentioned, I mean, the curriculum is a really good point. Focus on who to bring in from your team on top management for which types of sessions would benefit and how can you help support to kind of, you know, help your team develop the best talent, because this is, I mean, it's training for them and it's training for you. So I would say focus on that, because like Dana mentioned, you know, in December, if chosen into the program, we will do interviews with you, understand what are your capability gaps as a team, as a business, and we will tailor curriculum around that. So if there is someone on your team who, and you're looking to raise investment next year, who would benefit a little bit more from VC intros or from understanding how to raise investment or cap tables, we have really good sessions on all of those that we can plug them into. I mean, you'll see Simon's the co-founder of his business, and he attended all the sessions, and I can't underscore it enough. It is really what you put into it, and Simon put a lot into it. And I know that it is a lot on top of running your business, but again, I can't say it enough. It is what you put into it.
Although a lot of my colleagues said it's the last time I actually worked hard. So yeah, I attended every session, and that was a decision we took. And I think that gives, to have, if you can afford the time to have one person who can do every session, it gives you that continuity. It means you're not missing out on anything. And even if in some of the meetings you're just taking notes and just taking down some ideas or some contacts for some other members of your team, if you can do that, it's a really good thing. Don't expect much sleep for a couple of months, but as I say, it is worth it. But then that person can then make the decision as to who attends which sessions, who's going to get the most out of each session. And that ranged from me doing yoga one day on one session, to having psychological evaluations, to having advice on, as Jacqueline says, putting together cap tables. It was very varied. There wasn't, and this isn't just me blustering because Jacqueline's on the call, there wasn't a session I didn't get something out of. There were some sessions, I must admit, the yoga session was probably the one where I wasn't fully engaged, maybe. But yeah, there wasn't a single session that there wasn't at least some value. And as I say, a lot of the relationships we made and people we met during that process, we are still in very close contact with, and we are still getting value from 18 months, nearly 2 years down the line. So yes, again, I've rambled again, sorry.
No, it was a good ramble, and I will say that the yoga session was optional. So even to that point, Simon attended even the optional sessions, which is, you know, above and beyond exceeding expectations. The last thing that I will say, we're not completely ruthless. We do record a lot of the sessions where the speakers are comfortable with it. So to that point, if we have had members who are in Australia where it's 2 or 3 in the morning and we can't work around schedules to get the speakers to work. If you have something where, you know, I have a pitch the next day, I can't be up at 3 in the morning listening to this, we understand. I will say though too, it is there, that engagement was still there from the Australian companies that we did have in the program. So they listened to it, they followed up. It's just how much engagement you put into it.
100%. And on the note of the program structure and how the program is being delivered. Obviously, in the past 3 cohorts, we've had ups and downs, starting with cohort 1 that was pre-pandemic, and it was all in person until when kind of COVID hit the UK, and then everything switched virtual. Cohort 2, I believe, was mostly fully virtual, and cohort 3 was virtual with some in-person elements. How are we foreseeing the structure of cohort 4 to be like, Jacqueline?
Yes, so Dana, you gave a good overview. I mean, the past ones have been required to be virtual because the world effectively shut down. So that completely makes sense. I think moving forward, we will continue to have a majority virtual element. And the reason for that being is because from our first cohort to our second cohort and our second cohort to our third, we did see an increase in a large increase in the number of female founders that applied. So that is something that it's very important to us, and we do continually want to keep that in mind. How do we make sure that this program is accessible and is something that everyone can partake in? So there will be a few in-person elements in the future. To answer the question, I do think that the program will remain virtual with a few in-person elements. So 1 week or 2 weeks out of the program being in person. Given that our primary key partner is Tawazun Economic Council and Boeing, I would foresee that this program could have in-person elements in the UAE, which would be great because it's robust with rich opportunities there in the region, lots of great partners to meet. But that is not something that has been solidified yet. Any in-person details will be shared at least 90 days in advance with the participants. So it'll probably be shared in the coming month or so during the application process. So that's something that will be shared with you. But I will say, being able to make connections, it is not required to be in person. I mean, heck, I haven't even met Simon in person. I'm convinced that he's just completely ghosting me. Because I've met almost everyone else from his team. But no, in all seriousness, I will say, I think it's just, if you attend the Zooms, if you have your camera on, you can definitely make those connections, but we are going to probably have 1 or 2 pieces of in-person elements.
Can I just point out, I did fly to St. Louis and you flew to Europe when I flew to St. Louis. So it's not all my fault.
This is true.
Yeah, and adding on to that, in cohort 3, we did host a in-person kind of offsite with the cohort members in Galicia and Spain, and that was a really good opportunity for some of these startups to meet each other in person and kind of exchange the ups and downs of startup life and founder life, as we all know, but also to have a lot of in-person meetings with local partners and organizations, as well as some of the kind of Boeing technical experts that they've been kind of emailing or kind of on Zoom chats. So it's been really great to have some in-person elements to help you really solidify those connections, as Jacqueline said. Looking through the questions, I think I'm just going to go through some of the Q&A, some of the questions that people submitted using the Q&A box. So Nelson has asked, are there any specific points to be reflected in the pitch? And is there a template we can use as a guide? I'm assuming this is relating to the application form. And so in the application form, we do ask for you to submit a PDF pitch if you have one. And that really is for us to get a bit more understanding and in your own kind of way of storytelling as to what are your kind of USPs, what traction have you had, what are you looking for in the next kind of 3 to 6 months? And it really is, there isn't any kind of specific template that we are providing, but what we've mentioned previously with the application form, all of those points do apply. And I guess, Simon and Jacqueline, do you have any advice for the founders who might be applying on what to really hone in the pitch deck that they supply?
Would say less words is more. So keep it very high level. Focus on some of the key things that is core and true to your business, your mission, the problem to solve, and why your solution is the right choice. Those are the key things that I would say to focus on, but also come to the meetings that if you are chosen to be interviewed, or if you do meet with the program team, come to those meetings open to feedback. because if you are, they will give you really good key points.
I've got nothing to add to that. Sound advice, yeah, and yeah, very much so. Don't go into too much detail. Remember, it is a pitch, not a full company explanation.
100%. Sophia's asked, notice that Tawazun is a partner and also MOD was involved previously. Is this mainly a defense industry focused program?
No, it's not. Well, unfortunately, if you're noticing anything from our answers, it depends, or it's quite broad. But I would say if you look at the defense industry, they're just as focused on innovation as any other company. So the access to early career talent and early innovative solutions is more important now than ever for them. So they see this program as a good point for technology adoption. So that is a big reason why, they've been coming on as key partners to get access and understand how to work more effectively with small, medium-sized businesses and be more innovative. And again, if you look at Boeing, Boeing company is defense and commercial. So that is a lot of the pull as well for if there is proof of concepts opportunities. It doesn't necessarily mean that the proof of concepts are solely in defense or services. It could also, in commercial and services, it could also be in defense. It just kind of depends. It's not a requirement to work in defense. So if you or your business, that isn't something that appeals to you, then that is by no means a requirement whatsoever. It's just to say that they are interested in getting access to more innovative solutions and understanding how this program does technology adoption.
Awesome. Other questions I'm seeing are relating back to the application process. Does the company have to have a minimum capital base?
Nope, it does not. That's all I can really say. Nope.
I think we've answered that in kind of multiple different formats, but yeah, short answer, no. Who reviews the applications? I can kick that off. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of everyone. I will say it's not, you can be thankful that it's not me reviewing the technology pieces of it because I am not technical. But yes, no, it is a little bit of the whole team and our program partners. So we do have multiple key inputs that are provided. So it's not just one person reviewing each. There's multiple different opinions, and we do get together and talk about, hey, why is this reviewed in this way or that way? And it is interesting to see how some partners or some stakeholders across the business will review some applications very, very positively or very, very harshly. And we do have discussions around each. So a mix of subject matter experts and corporate stakeholders from each partner.
Awesome. One more question around applications. The question is saying, we have US granted patents in aerodynamics and AI, no MVP done. Is that something you would consider? Yeah,
I would say we would. If you have ideas for how your solution could work as well into what different proof of concept areas or different solutions that you could support within the business, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also one of the questions that came through the chat is, could you kindly elaborate on the traction needed? Does that include non-revenue generating startups?
Yeah, again, going back to my earlier answer, when we applied, we were non-revenue generating. We, at that point, only had one patent in place, and that was for the very sort of basic part of our technology offering. We had no minimum viable product, and we applied and we got a huge amount out of it. So absolutely, I think one of the, I can't remember was it FICO Bloom on our cohort?
Yeah.
Was two guys, and they'd been going for 2 weeks, I think, when they applied. So they were sort of 4 or 5 months old by the time the cohort actually started. And I think they got a huge amount out of it as well. So no, apply away.
Yep. And FICO Bloom, actually, they just had a huge technology breakthrough about 3 months ago, and they were a part of Cohort 2, and we're kicking off Cohort 4. So
adding on to that, I definitely say even if you're not sure you might be the best fit, we'd still say submit an application so we can have a look through and share it internally with any of our mentors to see if there's any alignments even outside of the program. And for the people who don't make it onto the top 10, we do try our best to connect you with different opportunities that we know within the industry, whether that's different programs, different accelerators or communities that might be a greater fit for you. And so that is something that we can also do. Fast forwarding on to, I guess, the post-program experience. And I'd love to hear from Simon, like how has HiiROC progressed since you attended the program, and how is the post-program support?
So the progression we've made since the program, well, we raised, subsequent to the program, we raised £30 million last year. 10 million of that, as I explained, was from Melrose, who are the owners of GK and Aerospace. But we also got investment from Centrica, Hyundai. And again, it's not necessarily all of that investment was, you know, I know Jacqueline would love me to say it was all down to the accelerator. But what the accelerator does is it gives that profile, it gives that endorsement, it shows that you're speaking to organizations and companies where your technology is of interest and you can gain traction. We've been in close touch with, well, actually 2 members of the Rolls-Royce team that were on the cohort advising us have now joined HiiROC. So we've actually poached staff from one of the program sponsors. We're in constant touch with Boeing. Our CEO was out in the UAE back in May, I think it was towards the end of May, at the Global Aerospace Summit, at the invitation of Boeing. During that summit, he was introduced to a number of contacts, including Tawazun as well. And I think conversations are ongoing with them at the moment. I was in the USA last year, spent 2 full days with Boeing staff over in the USA, who then introduced me to local organisations that give advice on building up business in the USA. We're looking at potentially siting our USA operation over in St. Louis, subsequent to the meetings that Boeing helped me set up over there. It's constant, and certainly, it's not only Boeing and the sponsor companies. Also, we've called on advice from Will and Ksenia and Gabby in the Aerospace Xelerated team, and they've helped us with contacts and any ideas, even from we need a completely radical new web design, who do you know? So we're calling on that experience all the time. The other thing which has been really good is, as I say, our WhatsApp group is still going with the cohort members, and people will come on and say, we're looking to get a firm of accountants in, we're looking to get our first audit done. Who do you know? Does anyone know a good CFO who's looking for work? All these sort of things are happening all the time. That channel is still active, as I say, 18 months after the cohort ended. So the support is there. It really depends on how much you call on it, but certainly anything that we've asked for help on, we've never been turned down. Apart from Jacqueline still owes me a drink.
Thanks so much, Simon. I think that really well summarizes that once you join Aerospace Xelerated, you're a part of the Aerospace Xelerated family, and we do our best to support you when you need it. It will be less intense there won't be kind of weekly Zoom calls, any workshops, but we'll be there when you need us, and we'll be sure to kind of be always on hand to kind of either bounce ideas or provide our advice, or even kind of connections that we might have. In the last 4 minutes, I'd love kind of maybe Jacqueline and Simon each to maybe share a short kind of 2 sentences on what is your biggest advice for startups looking to apply.
I would have to say, even if you're skeptical, just apply. You have nothing to lose. And it's a little bit longer than 2 sentences, but I would say that the biggest thing is stay true to yourself and your business. If you do get chosen in the program, you might get loads of advice throughout the application process. You might get loads of advice if it's not something that aligns with you, your mission, your business. don't take it. It's a data point and it's good to have, but I would say, even if you're at all interested, just apply. And it's not me pushing this program. Because again, if you do get chosen, it's something that you'll get something out of it, even if you have to put in what you want to get out. But I would say if you're even remotely a little bit interested, just throw your application in there and see where it goes.
Yeah, my advice, as I said right at the beginning of the call, if you're going to take the time and effort to make a good application and you're successful, make the most of it. It's a gold mine. It's a gold mine for a new business. There is so much you can learn. There are so many contacts you can make. The network during the cohort, all of a sudden on LinkedIn, you just look at your views and all of a sudden that's going through the roof. People are connecting you, even people you haven't spoken to. And obviously Airbus are a competitor of Boeing. Airbus weren't involved in the cohort we were on, but as soon as that cohort finished, we're getting connected to Airbus. Airbus are phoning us up rather than us trying to get hold of them. So it really is just make the most of it. It's a difficult application. It's not daunting, but it's a difficult application. It's a difficult thing to get on because it's so good and so many companies want to get on it. But if you do get on it, really do make the most of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much both for amazing answers throughout the past 45 minutes. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Just to briefly kind of touch on, our next event will be both an in-person and but also live streamed on our YouTube event, which is exploring this year's accelerated theme, digital services and solutions. And Xenia has sent a sign-up link via Eventbrite in the chat. So if you're, that'll be hosted on September 7th. And so if you're around, definitely do tune in and learn more about this year's accelerated theme and what we're kind of really, really excited to look for in that theme. Awesome.
And I'll be there. Come and introduce yourself. Love to meet you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.